Are we shifting the strategy, right, when it comes to dealing with the outbreak now?
Yeah, we're seeing this gradual change in the narrative around this whole issue. 1,218 cases reported on Sunday, and that was yet another record, as you say. But Gladys Berejiklian, the New South Wales Premier, saying that's not as important as the other numbers. The number of people in hospital, which is currently at 800, the number of people in ICU, 120. But the number she's really focusing on now is the vaccination rate. 50,000 shots almost administered on Saturday, and New South Wales hitting 35% of the population now fully vaccinated. So that's halfway to that target of 70%, where the Premier's eyeing some easing of restrictions. And it's a similar story in Victoria as well. There are case numbers rising there at a slower rate, but the vaccination rollout proceeding pretty strongly. But this is opening up this whole conversation in Australia now about when we get around to living with the virus. There's a couple of states, Western Australia, Queensland, which want to keep lockdown. They have a very low number of cases there. But the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, today imploring states to open up. These lockdowns are now costing the country about $3 billion per week. So the conversation now turning to when can those internal borders open, and when can the country just live with COVID?
That's the biggest question, isn't it, Paul? Living with COVID. Now let's look at New Zealand from that light. Sliding down Bloomberg's COVID resilience ranking, had another 83 cases reported yesterday. Can it get back to COVID zero?
Yeah, well, we heard from the Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern last week saying that elimination's still the right strategy for New Zealand. But you just see how fast that Delta variant spreads. The country's decision to go into lockdown with just one case now looks rather inspired, because the cases now 429. So that all happened in the space of less than 2 weeks. So elimination's still on the table, but we have one epidemiologist in New Zealand, Michael Baker, saying, look, he hopes cases have reached a plateau, but they may not have. And it's just a case of, New Zealand cannot return to restrictions at level 1 as they knew them for so long towards the end of last year and the start of this year. So that conversation's starting to happen across the Tasman Sea in New Zealand as well. One piece of good news for New Zealand is that the outbreak mainly is confined to Auckland, so there's some discussion about loosening restrictions for the rest of the country.